discussion on the 5th chapter of Bodhicharyavatarā. And maybe we start with developing the right motivation, which is hopefully bodhichitta for the sake of all sentient beings. So please start with this. Maybe you have done that already while waiting. But please try to really think of all sentient beings who are suffering and remembering their pain and their dissatisfaction, and for their sake, we want to practice the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. We want to study first, of course, then contemplate on it, then meditate on it, and then practice it to really help all sentient beings. So please, in your mind and in your heart, please develop that motivation. Okay, and since I'm not on my computer here, I hope you have the text in front of you. If not, I will read out the root verses. So we are still in the middle of the 5th chapter, where we are discussing on the qualities we need in our mind to really then be able to practice discipline. And so the qualities that we need are, in our context here, mindfulness, introspection, conscientiousness. So everything that is guarding our mind, that is watching our mind, that is protecting our mind. These are the things we try to develop here in order then to work for the benefit of others. So in other words, in order to have the Bodhisattva discipline or the Bodhisattva's way of life. So that is the order. First we develop these qualities of mindfulness, introspection, basically, mainly. And thanks to that, our mind is in such a proper state that bodhicitta can be felt and can be practiced. So in this regard, we already talked about that we avoid doing actions that will harm others, and we also talked about actions that we try to adopt that create virtues. And now we are in the 3rd aspect here of this 5th chapter, where we are talking about really now working for the benefit of beings. And this now starts with verse 84. And it says, "When this is well understood, I should always strive for the welfare of others. The far-seeing, merciful one have allowed a bodhisattva to do some actions that for others were forbidden." So that is a very practical verse, and it also shows the difference between Shravakayana and Mahayana. It shows the difference in our motivation and therefore also in our action. It is practical because when we really want to work for the benefit of others, if we really want to engage with others, then of course sometimes it's difficult to keep a very pure discipline intact, a discipline where we are not lying even a little bit, or a discipline where we are not using harsh words, or a discipline where we don't steal a little bit here or there, that sometimes does happen. So, and for that sake, Buddha, who's here referred to as far-seeing, merciful one in Stephen Batchelor's translation, Buddha allowed the bodhisattvas to perform some actions that usually are not allowed. For example, lying. So Buddha agreed that the action is sort of secondary, but that the motivation is the primary thing to develop. So, and here, if the motivation is the bodhisattva motivation, the good heart, the bodhicitta, and of course that is paired with wisdom and skillful means, then with that kind of good motivation, Buddha said, okay, even though it is not good to lie, even though it is not good to steal and so on, in some cases, in some exceptions, you are allowed as a bodhisattva to do so. Because it is hopefully aimed and also effective in that to really benefit other beings. I hope that is clear. So generally, for example, we know the classic example is maybe stealing. We know that stealing is not good because it's taken what was not given. But then also in the West we have like Robin Hood, who's stealing from the rich people to give it to the poor. So the stealing is motivated by a good action, by a benevolent heart. It is caring about many sentient beings, and it's based on an understanding of the injustice that is happening. So therefore I think normally in the West we like the idea of Robin Hood. And of course that we also have in Buddhist tradition. We have many other examples. The classic example is of a captain who is killing one person in order to protect 500 beings that that person would have had killed. So therefore a killing is something that normally we should not do. But then in that kind of, in a specific difficult situation, then killing or stealing or lying and so on, there are actions that then have to be done because they are more beneficial than just doing the textbook virtuous actions. If anybody who's not talking, please could you mute yourself? Otherwise, there are so many noises in the back. Thank you. Okay. And if you want to say something, please discuss. I'm a little bit annoyed here with the technical stuff at the moment, that I'm using my mobile phone and my computer's internet is not working. But as long as we can hear each other, I think that's the best. That is what we need here. So if you have any questions, then just unmute yourself, yes, and talk. Yes, there's somebody. I think skillful means is often used as either a third thing out of compassion, wisdom, and skillful means, or you could even put compassion into skillful means. But wisdom is usually not skillful means. But of course, you need wisdom also to know what is skillful in a particular situation or not. So actually, therefore, it's a good question because it's sort of explained differently, and so it's maybe overlapping over both compassion and wisdom in that sense. Nevertheless, the classical distinction is really like compassion, basically compassion or love. You want that the other person is happy and that the other person is free of suffering. So that is love and compassion. So that is the main motivation. And then on top of that, you have, let's say, the absolute wisdom, what we really mean by wisdom, which is the understanding of emptiness. So these two. But then, of course, you have relative wisdom, where you discriminate and you see the situation and you check and balance and you understand cause and conditions. And then from there, paired with compassionate love, you then develop the skill how to deal with a particular situation and person. let's call the captain, my captain. What is okay? So I tell the whole story first, and then I try to analyze. So the captain saw that there's one guy who wants to kill the other 500 passengers, and the captain saw also that there's no other way to stop this guy but to kill him, and so therefore he killed him, and by that achieved the goal of saving the other 500. Nevertheless, the captain knew that by killing, he himself will accumulate the karma of killing, even though it's paired with a good motivation. But he knew that will also have a karmic result on him, and so he was, out of his love, he was for the 500 people. He was willing to experience that karmic result of killing. And that karmic result of killing was then that he actually was reborn in hell. That's how the classic story is. But because so that rebirth in hell was the result of his action of killing. But because his motivation was so great, he was it was only like a yo-yo rebirth. Touch hell and then you go out of hell immediately again. So it was not really like he was not really suffering permanently there. And also you could argue that his motivation was also including the bad guy, that he wanted to prevent the bad guy from doing something negative, like killing 500 arhats. I think the other passengers were arhats. So you see that there was a lot of process in the captain's mind, and a lot of goodwill for everybody involved. So that was definitely his love and compassion. And then, with his worldly wisdom, I guess he was really like checking the situation and was seeing maybe he could just imprison the bad guy, and could do something that is not so drastic as killing. But then with his worldly wisdom, he saw that the only skillful means, the only method is to kill that person, unfortunately. And then again, out of love and compassion, he did that. And with his wisdom also, he knew that this will be bad for him. But then, that was the best skillful thing to do. And then, hopefully, yes, I think because it's a Jataka story, so it was Buddha in his previous life, in one of his previous lives. So I'm sure he also had the wisdom of emptiness. So therefore, he also applied that the whole time, knowing that he, the murderer, and the person he is murdering, and the people he is protecting, and the act of murdering, of killing, they are all empty by nature and just appearing on the relative level, like on the level of designation. So I think he had the whole package there. And yes, since you asked about skillful means, I think he was checking properly what is the best method to solve that problem. And then he came up with killing this guy for the sake of all. Yeah, that is how it's classically said. Skillful means includes compassion and the motivation, but also then the action. But really, the action also comes out of wisdom. It cannot be really separated. And the skillful means. So, it's like a a noble threesome. Like putting all these three together, and that is how the Bodhisattva is sort of practicing. And also when you study those 10 parameters, then also the last parameter, what we normally have as the last, number 6, discriminating wisdom, is actually further divided into 4. So therefore you have, by that you then get 10 if you want to count 10. And then one of these fourfold subdivisions of the 6th parameter is also skillful means. So that means, it has a strong connection to wisdom, to discriminating wisdom. Great question. The main thing here is really to understand that in Mahayana, so in Bodhisattvayana, we of course try not to harm anybody, but our main motivation is to help everyone. And if that is our motivation, then even what we know from the gurus, also outrageous actions or very unconventional actions or even like seemingly negative actions are okay. That is the view, and that is, as a view, it is totally acceptable. But then, of course, everybody has to be honest with him or herself if one is really using these 3, wisdom, compassion, and skillful means, when doing something unconventional or outrageous. That is, of course, so important, because we could misuse that free ticket sort of that Buddha gave, But Buddha gave that free ticket, because motivation is always more important than action. Yeah, I'm really sorry. Today will be continued like that with the mobile phone because my computer just doesn't connect to the internet. It's really strange. Okay, there was somebody saying something. Yes. So I think it's like two things, right? So the first thing, if you want to judge somebody else who is behaving like strangely, to that Buddha said it's impossible. You cannot. It is like only a Buddha can judge somebody else. I think Buddha said only me or somebody like me can judge somebody else. And that I think the only if we are Buddha, then we can be 100% sure what is the motivation of the other person, what are his or her thoughts, and why is he doing that action. So for that one needs to be a Buddha actually to judge somebody. And therefore Buddha continued that therefore nobody else should judge somebody else. So that is a big statement. But then, of course, it's not black and white. So, we are not totally confused beings in the deepest samsara. We are also not fully enlightened Buddhas, but maybe we are in between. So, therefore, we do have some sort of wisdom and some sort of what is it called? Inferential logic. So, when we see somebody acting in this or that way, we might have a sort of good guess, why he or she is doing that, and we might guess his or her motivation. And the further we develop on the path, the more educated or sophisticated or true our guess will be, in judging the other person. So therefore, we are of course not totally. It's not that we can never sort of feel or understand the other person's motivation. That is one point. But on the other hand, we cannot really understand it completely and perfectly as long we are not Buddhas. And so therefore it's really difficult to say. But then we just have to use our present moment wisdom, according to our best possibilities, and try to, or intuition, or however we call it, and try to understand the situation and try to understand why that person is doing something like this. But when we are concerned, then I think it's more easy, because we are sort of closer to our mind than to the mind of somebody else, and we have more insight into our mind. So therefore, we can more likely to see our motivations and agendas and defilements. Of course, there also we are deceiving ourselves also often. That of course is happening because we are not Buddhas. Nevertheless, we have. I think we are the closest one to ourselves. So, when I want, for example, when I'm in a situation and then maybe it's an uncomfortable situation, and I know that a small lie would maybe get me out of that. But then that is the thought, and then I could check why I want to get out of it, or why I want to lie. Is it really benefiting the other person, or is it only that I'm lying because I'm afraid, or I'm scared to go into the confrontation, or is it that I'm lying because I want to appear pure, and innocent? I keep my facade by lying. Or am I lying to manipulate the situation in an egoistic way? So I think there we should, if we take a little time, I think we should be able to analyze a little bit our motivation and mind, and then come to the conclusion, it's actually an ego-centered wish why I want to lie, so therefore be honest. But if after using our wisdom and so on, we understand, that lie, it's a small thing, and it really helps the whole situation, it really helps all beings involved, or most of the beings involved, nobody's really suffering because of that, then maybe in these exceptional situations, then Buddha allowed to lie. Does that make sense? Because thank you. Because I'm not. I switched off videos of you, so for me, so my mobile phone is black, so that the internet is as good as possible. And really, Buddha allowed those. So Buddha allowed those actions, but always as an exception. Like the default setting of our behavior should be very, very good, not harming anyone and helping everyone. So we should not kill, we should not steal, we should not have sexual misconduct, we should not, what is the other ones? Not lie, not harsh words, not gossip, not create schism. Definitely, those 7, from body and speech, we should not do. But in exceptions, then, as a bodhisattva, for the sake of others, we might might be allowed to do them, but it's really an exceptional case. Okay, then. Yes. Okay, I think we just continue like that. Yeah. So you're saying you're helping the situation and others, but also you're sort of doing what your ego wants, right? But if it's benefiting your ego, is it like, I mean, does it make you... Okay, so when as a bodhisattva we want to practice for the sake of all sentient beings, if that is our aim, then of course we are also included, you know. So a bodhisattva doesn't have to only do what is good for others and bad for oneself, you know. But our benefit can be taken into account, yes. But it should not be the benefit on the expenses of others. So if I'm baking a cake and I'm also getting my piece, you know, then everybody's happy, me included. That is totally fine, you know. But if I'm making the cake so that everybody is like prostrating to me the next 3 weeks, and that is boosting my ego, then I think that would be too extreme, too selfish. But if I get a slice of pizza or cake or whatever, if there's also a slight benefit for me, that is also that is of course acceptable. I don't know how that is relatable to your situation. Yeah. But we cannot aim for like 100% for others only, and there's no benefit for myself. That is not also not the aim, you know. We are really trying to benefit all sentient beings involved, and as many as possible and as sustainable as possible. If we are one of them, that's great. But we are not the main focus. Yeah. Yeah, it really depends. Maybe my cake example is not so bad because that I'm getting the cake is of course a small benefit from myself, but it's not a huge thing, you know. So therefore that is okay. But in a work situation, you know, if you maybe think, okay, if I do this in the work situation and then my 10 colleagues get like a small benefit and I will be the CEO and have like 3 times the salary, then that is again too much, you know, that is too self-centered. But if you do something in your workplace and therefore all 10 colleagues and me, we will still all keep our job and everybody has a better work environment, me included, then that is sort of fine. So I think maybe the dosage of the ego is important there, and the check and balance, you know, who is really benefiting from it and not. Yeah, but we should never exclude ourselves too harshly. Yeah. And like His Holiness the Dalai Lama says also, when we practice compassion, that is helping us the most often, you know. So, and since now we all heard that sentence, you know, so whenever we practice compassion this evening, then we also know that it's a benefit for ourselves, but still we are doing it, you know. But we are not focusing on that self benefit, hopefully, but it's in the package. You're welcome. Okay, let's try one more time here. I will continue soon. I just try to, because now the laptop internet seems to work. And from now on, the stanzas are much easier. There's not so much to discuss, because from now on, then Shantideva is showing how we can maybe inspire others to the Buddha Dharma or to the teachers. And we are aware as Bodhisattvas that we represent Buddha Dharma, and therefore we are trying to behave properly. That is sort of the main thing that is happening in the next verses from 85 to 90, where we try to attract beings. I'm sure you have heard that we have these 4 ways of attracting beings. And the first one is giving gifts, giving the others what they want or what they need. And that is always, we always like to get gifts, we always like to get presents. So that is, therefore, here in the 4 ways of attracting beings, that is the first thing we practice as a Bodhisattva, to bring them closer to us, but not us as this individual person, but us in the sense of to the Buddha Dharma or to the Bodhisattva way of life. And the first topic here is then about food and clothes. This is verse 85. I should divide my food amongst those who have fallen to lower realms, those without protection and practitioners, and eat merely what is sufficient for myself. Except for the 3 robes, I may give away all. So food is something apparently what we all do every day, or what we all eat every day. And here, like 3 guests, partly visualized or maybe even present, with whom we share our parts of our food. We mentally shared maybe with hell beings or pretas or animals, or physically even we do it, of course, that we maybe give some food to an animal or some water to a dog, or some small piece to the pretas before we eat. And then here in Stephen Batchelor's translation is that we give it to those without protection. So this could be somebody who's sick, or beggars, who are homeless, who don't have money, who can't get their own food. And also we offer it to practitioners, to all the yogis who practice the Dharma, and we are sustaining them in their practice. And then we also, after we have done that, and of course we also, the first share we offer to Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, that is sort of a given. This we can also either do symbolically, or we can visualize it. But then after we have shared it with others, then we eat. And here Shantideva is saying, we eat merely what is sufficient for myself. So here we only eat what is really needed for us to sustain this precious human life. As Madhyamikins, of course, we always want to have the middle way. So we don't want to go in extremes. That means we are not making ourselves starve and be hungry all the time. But also we don't go to the opposite, or like, indulgence or things, that we only want very luxurious food and all of that. But we just find the middle way, and we eat what is, what we need, what really sustains our life, what keeps us healthy, and without having too much or too little. And also Nagarjuna is talking about food in his letter to a friend, and there he is also talking it. We should perceive it as a medicine to keep us healthy, and we should eat in the right amount. and we should eat without any kleshas. That means we should not have too much desire or obsession with food, or we should not have too much aversion, too much preferences, and we can, of course, include then the Mahayana motivation of bodhichitta, that we eat to have a proper or healthy, precious human life in order to benefit others. And I don't know, food is, of course, something that is a very common thing. Meals are happening every day. And one can also discuss if we should eat dinner or not, because the monks and nuns, they're not supposed to eat dinner. And I know many Rinpoches who say, but that is because that is the truth, it's just better not to eat dinner. And so that rule actually, we should try to follow that also as lay practitioners, they say. And I think there are also studies, like medical studies, where they say it's good not to have dinner, or at least not to have huge dinners, but maybe have a little bit less in the evening. I think that's this about food. And also from meditation point of view, it's also obvious, if we eat too much, it all depends on your elements, so different dispositions or conditions you have physically maybe need different foods and different amount of food. But usually if we eat too much, then from Western point of view speaking, all the blood goes to our guts and stomach, and then we become heavy and dull and can't concentrate, and we lose our clarity of mind. And then if you eat too little, then also we become maybe too weak, or we become too restless and too windy internally, and then we can also not practice well. So therefore here the main thing is to find always a good balance, and not overdo it, and also not so don't eat too much and also don't eat too little. Now I have a second video here. And then. Okay, this is I closed it again. I'm very sorry for this. Thing here. Technical thing here. Like this. And then the next one is here with the cloth, and this is definitely for the monks and nuns, because here it's written in Shantideva's text, except for the 3 robes, I may give away all. So yes, as a monk or nun, you are supposed to have exactly 3 robes, and then yes, if you give them away, you would be naked, and that might not be very helpful. Therefore, please keep them. Could somebody unmute themselves who's in a very noisy situation? I can't from here. Okay, now it's better. And of course, it's not written here exactly. So, but here we are talking about robes. So therefore, it is clearly meant for those who are ordained, the nuns and monks. And they also should keep their robes because they remind them of the commitments they took. They remind them of the vows, of the Buddha Dharma, of the Vinaya. The precepts they should keep. So that of course is also another reason. And if we apply that to our lay practitioner's life, then I think it's the same with the food. We need some clothes, but also we don't need too much, in the sense of too expensive or too many varieties. We don't need a museum of shoes at home. but we can have maybe a chance to find the right balance there, that we have all we need, but that we don't overdo it. And another thing that is mentioned in the commentaries is also about medicine, and it's the same. Medicine is neither good nor bad, but we need to find the right dosage so that it really helps to keep our body alive and healthy. And then the next verse is 86. And earlier in the last session or so, we talked about the body being we tried to see the ugly aspect of body, and that we did in order to cut our attachment to the body. But here we see now, as you notice, we are more in the sense of really sustaining the body, maintaining the body, or making it more healthy and firm, so that we have a good, stable support for our mind. And here 86 says, "This body which is being used for the sacred Dharma should not be harmed for only slight benefit. By my behaving in this way, the wishes of all beings will be quickly fulfilled." So we understand that our body is useful precious, because we can practice the Dharma thanks to this body. It's like a tool. It's like the boat, I think, was a previous example. It's like a vehicle, with which we can come to the other shore, Buddhahood. So therefore, we should not be too careless with it, and maybe harm it easily, or endanger it easily. I don't know, by extreme sports, or we might, if we see like a pet running around and it's hungry, we don't cut our finger, those things, that is, if we are not on the first bhumi, we should shy away from those actions. But we should keep our body carefully protecting it without going into any extreme of too much and too little. And by that, then Shantideva here is saying that is fulfilling quickly the wishes of all beings, because with such a healthy and stable body, we can use it properly to practice. And it's quite similar also in Ayadeva's 400 stanzas. This is a text I like a lot. I don't know if you have had contact with it. He's also saying something similar. He's saying that though one, of course, views the body as an enemy, and that is out of context here, so though we don't have attachment to the body, that is the point, one still protects and cares for it. If one lives for a long time with discipline, great merit will arise from that. So it's very, very similar to Shantideva here. And then there are, of course, if we are high bodhisattvas, like on the first bhumi, which means we have really a direct understanding of emptiness, and therefore we also have the best skillful means, then we are here in verse 87. Then if we are on a higher level, then we could even give our body, which is our life, or body parts, to the sentient beings. But as long as we are not on the first bhumi, we should not do that. So 87 here is saying, those who lack the pure intention of compassion should not give their body away. Instead, both in this and future lives, they should give it to the cause of fulfilling the great purpose. Or give it to the cause, So as long as we are not on the first bhumi, that is how it is explained, we don't have this pure compassion, because our compassion is always mingled with negative emotion or ego-centeredness. and we don't see the truth properly and directly, so therefore we should not give away our body. And the main reason is really that we might regret it a lot afterwards. If we give something and then we regret, or if we do something, whatever, positive, and then we regret it afterwards, that is so much spoiling the action, and it's also ruining our joy, of course, of having done that action, and it will lead to a commitment not to do that action again. We can use that in regard to good and bad actions, but in regards to good actions, that is of course tragic. If we sort of overdo a good action now and then later I regret it, and then that regret will prevent us from continuously doing those positive actions. And so therefore, at our level, as long as we are not on the first bhumi, we should, before we do something outrageously positive, we should check carefully, if we will regret that later or not, and only then do it. I'm sure you know Shariputra's example, who just took the Bodhisattva vows, and who was then like a beginner's Bodhisattva and was so eager to do good. And then there was this mischievous guy and asked him for his hand. And then Shariputra cut his right hand with a knife, and then, of course, with his left hand, he offered his right hand to the person. And the person then was laughing and said, how dare you, how do you think I will accept an offering with your dirty hand, because the right hand is the pure hand. So, but Shariputra, having cut the right hand, had to, of course, give the right hand with his left hand. So he was using his impure hand. And so this mischievous other person was mocking Shariputra and discouraging so much, so that Shariputra gave up his Bodhisattva vow and then followed the Shravaka career basically and became an Arhat, which is still great, but he would have practiced the Bodhisattva path. That was his plan. But he was just doing an action that was too much for his mind state, basically. So therefore it is important to only offer the body or body parts that are not renewable. Of course, blood we can donate and stuff, or hairs. But we should not, or organs, of course, if you want to donate now, but really reflect upon it. But usually those body parts or your whole body, we should only give to others when we are on the first bhumi, because then we have really the wisdom to see if it's really benefiting others or not, and we have the wisdom that knows that we will not regret it afterwards. I just saw there are some chat messages. Let's see if I can read them from here. Yes. So the first one here. So in Vajrayana we can make sur or sang, but how we can benefit beings of lower realms in Mahayana way? I think that refers to the food offering. No, we can benefit like animals, easily. We just give them food. They are also in lower realms, and also in Mahayana we can visualize that. We can visualize giving food to others, or we can also do aspiration prayers to beings in lower realms. Since I don't know about you guys, but I don't have any direct contact to hell beings and pretas. Therefore, that has to happen in my mind, that connection, and then the wishes and the good motivation for them. And and as it is also custom, sometimes to offer part of the food to the pretas. You just put your ring finger in it and then you put it in the air, and hoping or putting it down wherever, that all beings of 6 realms are enjoying it. Okay, and Marina, I think, is referring more to these stanzas. Yeah, these 2 stanzas seem to be talking more about the self. Are they also somehow talking about attracting others? Yes, according to some commentaries, this is going on because attracting others starts with generosity. So that is the point, Maybe I give the whole context. So we are attracting others first by generosity, giving them gifts, and also talking gently, pleasantly, nicely, sweetly, that kind of thing. So therefore people like to hang around. That's it, So we are luring them, luring their ears maybe only, or luring their whole being. So, and then these are the first 2 attractions or ways of attracting. And once they are attracted, then we are hopefully bodhisattvas on this level, 5th chapter here. Because on the 3rd we took the bodhisattva vow and so on, and we practiced a lot. So therefore we are assuming that now we really have something to give on this level. So and then the 3rd and 4th way of attracting beings is the 3rd is that we I always mix up the order, but it doesn't matter so much, that whatever we say and do is then what is needed and helpful for others. So then we teach, for example, what others need, and we do actions that others need. When it's about teaching, it's not about that you teach what you know, but it's about sharing Dharma with what you think others need. Or when we do something as a bodhisattva in general, we do it to benefit others, and for that we need to know what they need, what they're lacking, what the problem is. So that is the 3rd, and it's in the classical way. It's mostly related to speech. So we as bodhisattvas on that level then speak according to the needs of others. And the 4th one is basically being the living example, like walking the talk or whatever it's called, that we do what we preach, so that we are not only speaking highly on stuff that we are not practicing, but that we really embody what we teach on that level. And that could also mean that we also practically show how to do it, if we in Vajrayana it's easy, or it doesn't matter, let's say Tonglen, since we are here in Bodhichitta. So if one is explaining how Tonglen works, this meditation where we give happiness and take on suffering, then people might not know how to do it, and then you show it, you practice with them. Or if you talk about generosity and people have problems with acting generously, then you go out, and you go out and you are generous. If there's a beggar or somebody needs a helping hand, then you go out and take maybe your students with you, and you show them by example. So these are the 4 ways of attracting beings. So first to attract them actually, and then the second part is already training them. And here, we are still in the first one where we are giving. So first we gave food, then we gave clothes, then we gave medicine according to the commentaries, and then we give our body or parts of the body. This is 86 and 87. So this is still under the heading of giving. And giving, then also the next one is still giving, because now Dharma is given. And giving is, of course, not only a material thing, but the best is Dharma, but then there's everything in between, like fearlessness is important to give, or time, or your ear, to listen to somebody, whatever, or just your presence or your smile. There's so many things we can give. Okay, and then here verse 88. The Dharma should not be explained to those who lack respect, to those who, like sick men, there's a like sick men, wear clothes around their heads, to those holding umbrellas, sticks or weapons, to those with covered heads. So the main point is the Dharma should only be taught to those who respect it. That is the main thing. I think that also in extension it also excludes missionarism. How is it called? Being a missionary. Sorry, I only know the German word at the moment. Missionary. Yeah, being a missionary. So that's also excluded because the other person needs to ask first, and needs to request that you talk about the Dharma. So the person needs to be open and respectful and willing and wanting to learn about it. And here there are just classical examples, what in ancient India, maybe also nowadays, would be not respectful behavior. For example, if what is said, if you have headbands during the teachings, or what is here, if you wear umbrellas and or weapons, to the shrine room, this we should not do. Or if you wear hats, or turbans, I think that is what this was referring to. Then those people who show these symptoms of not having respect to the Dharma in the teaching place, only in the teaching place, then you should not teach them. But if they're sick and therefore they wear these things, then it's something else. Or like if there's a teaching, like with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and then there are thousands of people and it's starting to be too hot, or too rainy, then he's giving the permission, please put on your hat or use your umbrella. Then that is, of course, totally allowed, and then he will continue to teach. But generally for us as a student of the Dharma, we should try to have that respect and show respect to the teaching. Because Dharma should be shared with somebody who is valuing it. And now it comes to 89. Please don't be too upset with the wording that I have here in English. So don't teach the Dharma, that is the idea. And now it says, nor to a woman unaccompanied by a man. The vast and profound should not be taught to lesser beings. Although I should always pay equal respect to the dharmas of the lesser and higher beings. So, nor to a woman unaccompanied by a man. That really means, this is, the assumption is we are heterosexual, I know we are not. Oh, I know many are not. And but we're just, for the sake of simplification, let's just assume that as the case here for the listeners and for the bodhisattvas who want to teach. So let's assume that. So if the basic idea is a man should then not be with a woman in the same room as a teacher-student relationship and teach. Same also, like a woman teacher should not be with a man student in the same room and teach. And then, yes, do all the permutations according to sexual preferences. But that is just that. There should not be, the disciple should not be alone if there's a potential sexual desire happening in whatever way. And that is to protect teacher and student. And of course, nowadays, the Rinpoches do that just out of practicality. But it would be generally safer, maybe, because nobody knows what is happening in a room then otherwise. So it would be safer if a third person would be in the room. But those rules, I heard, are still very valid for especially young monks, who need those kind of protections and boundaries. This is also actually I used to work in a hospital, and it was also like that. When I was a doctor and there was a female patient, then especially girls, actually, when I worked in pediatric as a pediatrician, then whenever I had a girl as a patient, then we always had a nurse in the room, and that is for the sake of the girl, but also for my sake, it's like, it's just good to have one witness there. So I think that is similar here. And then the second line here was, the vast and profound should not be taught to lesser beings. So here we are still in the gift of giving the Dharma, right? And here, even though this person is respectful, who's listening, we should still share the Dharma according to the level of that person. So, in other words, vast and profound refers to, profound always refers to the emptiness teachings, and vast refers to the skillful means kind of teaching that we have, especially in Vajrayana also. So these emptiness teachings or vast skillful means teachings, they should only be given to somebody who is on the appropriate, suitable mental level or disposition at the moment. Only then it's suitable to give these teachings. I'm sure you have heard, even though it's coming from the Vajrayana, the classic example is, if you have the milk of a lioness, I guess. Yeah. If you have the milk of a lioness, you can, you're not allowed to put that in a clay pot, because the clay pot will break, So, so that is the idea, like if you have that kind of powerful method or teaching to give the vessel, the student needs to be on the same level, to accept, digest, and cope with that instructions. So so one needs to know the level, understanding, capacity, disposition, inclination, wants and needs of the listener, and then give the gift of teaching accordingly. But the second half of this verse says, but please don't think, although I should always pay equal respect to the dharmas of the lesser and higher beings. Yeah, so please don't think there's actually a lesser and higher teaching or lesser and higher student. I think that the example would be if the student needs to listen to the Four Noble Truths and you start teaching Dzogchen, that is not helping the person at all, even though Dzogchen is the highest teaching, So therefore, for that student, the highest or best teaching are the Four Noble Truths, much higher than Dzogchen. Why? Because they work. That method works. That medicine is applicable. So therefore, therefore there is not an absolute better or lower or higher teaching, but it's only about finding the suitable teaching for the suitable student in the suitable time. And also the idea is that all these dharmas, Shravakayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, everything, at least from Mahayana point of view, is coming from the same source, which is Buddha. So therefore, of course, we are not belittling Shravakayana. Why? Why should we? It's a valid method given by somebody who is omniscient to lead other beings to omniscience. So therefore, no need to look down at it. Just because maybe it's not the method that we need at the moment, that doesn't qualify to look down on it. And we might need it tomorrow, or we might need it today, but we just don't notice it. So there are so many possibilities. Is that clear? This verse, especially with the woman thing, really, it's just know it's this is meant for monks, so for heterosexual monks, and therefore a woman alone in a room with this heterosexual monk teaching her this is inappropriate. That's all it's saying here, and then you apply to all other circumstances and ways. Why did it look the chat for a long time? There's something. I lost that. Where is the chat again? How do we know level of other person? This is only the perfect Buddha is here. Yes, exactly, Jangship. It's similar to what we talked earlier. We cannot judge anybody else as long as we are not a Buddha. So therefore we don't know it, actually. But the more we practice, that means the less obscurations we have, that the little bit more clearer picture we have what the other person needs to hear. But yeah, it's a guess job, all the time until we become a Buddha. But if we study Jewel Ornament of Liberation by Gampopa, this is like a very classical sort of Lamrim text in the Kagyu tradition. In all the Kagyu traditions, there Gampopa is saying, why I'm saying that? There Gampopa is saying, or stressing the importance of at least have the ability to read the mind of the other person. As a teacher, that one needs to have. It's quite a high standard, right? But this is necessary, because if you can't read the mind of the other person, yes, then all that applies what I said already. We are guessing, and also we are so dependent on the words of the student in this case. So whatever he or she says, we sort of need to believe. If we don't read his mind or her mind or thoughts behind or motivation behind. So we only have the words to work with, and they can be very misleading intentionally or unintentionally. Therefore, Gampopa, I think in the chapter, must be 3 on the spiritual guide, Gampopa is emphasizing that it's important to be able to read the mind of somebody else. Yes, again, that is ideal, and so that is maybe therefore too impractical. But let's say we are meeting somebody in a Dharma center, and this person talks to us, and then not like officially, but sort of this person wants to know more about the Dharma. So it's not he or she is not requesting a teaching, but we talk about the Dharma over the coffee table, and by that, then we have to check what kind of Dharma shall we share with that person. And therefore it's good then a little bit to check the other person, Is she or he a Buddhist since a long time? Did he or she receive many teachings? Or a little bit check how he or she is behaving. So, for example, I don't know. You can sort of feel if she or he is a little bit respectful in his or her behavior and conduct, how he or she is dealing with other people, or how he or she is connecting or contacting or touching with inanimate objects. You can a little bit see the carefulness or carelessness. That's what I mean, And then if you see that person is totally careless, I'm just making it up now, if you see that person is very careless in his or her communication with the world and beings, then I think emptiness is definitely not something we should talk about, the absolute level. But then it's more important to talk about relative, like proper behavior, respect, compassion, interdependence, love, and so on. I mean, that is always we are always on the safe side if we only talk about that, actually. But then maybe if somebody is very dogmatic, and overly careful, basically, neurotic, I mean, with behavior or things, then maybe it doesn't have to be the straight emptiness that we are introducing, but maybe then we can introduce a little bit about the illusory-like nature of things, It's like a dream, like a mirage, like an illusion, like an echo, and so on. And that we understand that nothing is really there because everything is dependent on causes and conditions and interdependent origination and so on, So we can bring in those things to, when you bring the illusoriness of things, then everything becomes less solid and heavy, and then hopefully this person becomes less dogmatic, and less overly neurotic. So like that, I think it's good to. So if we can't read the mind of the person, I think we just need time, to understand the other person a little bit better, and then to see in that way, what is missing, Is the person maybe very talented to be angry a lot, And then, yes, let's talk about patience a little bit, like en passant. Or is this person, arrogant or whatever, So we have to start with a sort of diagnosis, knowing it is only a guest job because we are not Buddhas yet. But then based on that diagnosis, we are giving the medicine, but we are always staying open to maybe correct our diagnosis, and then correct the way of medicine giving. And this actually continues also, and now it's the other way around in verse 90, if I may continue with that one. If Jangshub, you think it's there's something missing in the answer, please continue to write. So 90 is the opposite. I should not communicate the Dharma of lesser being to one who is vessel for the vast Dharma. I must not forsake the Bodhisattva's way of life, nor mislead others by means of sutra and mantras. So that is the opposite. Now let's say there is a very qualified, after, I don't know, after mind reading or after taking time and checking the other person with whom you want to talk about the Dharma, because he or she asked, then if you see that person is actually of high caliber, and then don't teach the lower jhana teachings, because then you would give him or her a medicine that is sort of not powerful enough, and by that you will delay the enlightenment of that person. And if you delay the enlightenment of that person, then all his or her potential students enlightenment is also delayed. Tang Shuk is saying, it's okay. The main thing, I guess, that they prescribe proper medicine before the patient passes away. Yes, that would be good. Yes. It's a similar example, with this 12 years of checking teacher and student, and then it takes 24 years, once the student has checked the teacher and teacher has checked the student, then 24 years has passed, and then, maybe somebody has passed away already. So, therefore, one cannot overly check, but one has to be a little bit courageous also, yes, and don't take too much time. Okay, so here, the point is, and I think Tulku Ogyen was like that. I don't know if you know Tulku Ogyen. He was a big Kachi master, like father of Chukyinima Rinpoche, Choling Rinpoche, and so on, Mingyur Rinpoche and Tsoknyi Rinpoche, and many others. And so Tulku Ogyen, he sometimes gave Dzogchen teachings to, I think, Muslims or Christians, non-Buddhists definitely. No Nandro, no four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, no need to read Gampopa or Patrul Rinpoche, no need for Bodhicharyavatarā, no need for Vajrayana empowerment and all of that, Because Tulku Ogyen Rinpoche, he saw that person is ready for Dzogchen, no matter his official spiritual journey so far, So if Tulku Ogyen then would say, okay, this is not a Buddhist, he doesn't even have refuge, so let's start with the Four Noble Truths, then that takes ages, And then, Tulku Ogyen was already old at that time, so maybe he would have died already. So before he then would teach Dzogchen to that person after the person has finished the Nandro. So my point is, so he saw that caliber of that person, that receptivity to Dzogchen teachings that are usually not given easily, and he gave these Dzogchen teachings to that appropriate vessel. So that is the other way around. Otherwise, if you don't do that, it's not maybe, it's not confusing. It could also confuse the person if you give lower level teachings, even though the person is on a higher level. So basically, try to detect the level and teach accordingly. And yes, Tulku Ogyen has the mental power to do so. Okay, then here, the last part of 90. I must not forsake the Bodhisattva's way of life. Nor mislead others by means of sutras or mantras. This you can understand in various ways. I think it makes most sense to say, so don't forsake the Bodhisattva way of life, means you could understand, don't forsake the relative truth, or don't forsake compassion, don't forsake all the advice that Shantideva is giving here, just because things are empty, just because there are higher teachings somewhere, that kind of thing, even though the view is as sparse as the sky, our actions should be like minute, like flower, that is what Guru Rinpoche said. So even though the absolute truth is like inexpressible and all of that, and that is our aim, still we, on the relative level, we try to be as careful as possible. And then the last line, we could say, nor mislead others by means of sutra or mantras. You should not say, I don't know, if you just recite this mantra, then you can fool around and do sexual misconduct, or you can cheat, or you can smoke or get drunk and all of that just because you're a Vajrayana practitioner. We should not use mantra, for example, like that. Or we cannot say, just because you are reading the sutra, therefore you don't have to practice discipline. It's similar again, we should try to have a good balance between relative and absolute. And internally, yes, let's try to aim for the vast view of emptiness, Buddha nature and all of that. But then on a relative level, be very careful. To the outside, outwardly, yes, very careful, very respectful, very compassionate. And all the other paramitas, very generous, disciplined, patient, and enthusiastic, diligent, very focused, very non-distracted. And so these first 5 parameters are the relative training that we should have. That is the main point here of verse 90, to bring these 2 levels together. Of course, it also applies to the other extreme that I earlier mentioned. Basically, if somebody is neurotic, then maybe bring in illusoriness of life. That is the extreme of going too much into relative. Everything becomes too solid. Everything becomes like a cause for constipation, as Khyentse Rinpoche says, dogmatic. So therefore, yes, you have to bring in emptiness then, to bring it back into a balance. But then if one is getting too careless, too nihilistic, everything is empty, actions doesn't matter, no need to be compassionate, everything is empty, then you have to bring in the relative to balance it out. So, and that is, I think, our training in the 2 truths, to always see if we are going into one extreme and then bring the other in order to land in the middle. Okay, thank you all. I'm still annoyed with this technical problems here today. And I'm speaking mainly to a black screen here in my mobile phone. So, but I hope you could hear some of the words, and I hope some of them even made sense. And thank you so much for your patience. Really, I hope it makes sense. And if it made a little sense, then please keep it and think of it and digest it. And if not, throw it far, far away. But not to Mexico, so that nobody else is suffering from trash. Okay, that's it. Please, in your own mind, please dedicate whatever merit or positivity came out of that. And take good care, and see you soon somewhere. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.